All right, we're doing this one as a recorded show on all formats, video, audio, whatever, just because I want to make sure that my show from earlier on Monday with the mighty Rhett Bauer has enough space to frickin' breathe. Gotta let a show breathe, man. So here we are in the second installment of my solo exploration of the Yahoo Top 100 and their pre-rank list. And we're going to try to get through another 25 names today. There's just so many things that I want to get through on this show over the next, 5 to 10 days that sorting it all out has become incredibly difficult. I will say here at the outset, please take a second to like, rate, subscribe. Rating, subscribing, rating, subscribe. That's the big stuff. You can find me on Twitter over at Dan Vespris. You can also follow at Old Man Squad on Twitter. And it will follow you back because it likes you. You like it, it likes you. That's Old Man Squad. The got all sorts of other amazing hosts over on that Old Man Squad feed as well. So make sure to check that out. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. And again, today we're going 26 through 50 on the Yahoo Big Board. That was dropped late last week, Thursday in the late afternoon, early evening. We got around to starting our exploration on Friday. And then again, over the rest of this week, we're talking to mostly awesome guest analysts on the program. We're also going to be having some episodes where we continue to pour through team previews because we still have 7 teams to go there. The Pacers, the I Forgets, and then the entire Atlantic division. We did Detroit. We did Cleveland. I don't think we did Chicago yet. Is that the other one from the Central we haven't done? Chicago? In any event, we'll get around to that as well. So with all of that still kicking around, I thought it was more important to get through the next few names on this one for one specific reason. We dive in here. I want to get through the next few chunks of this because I also want to do a show, and this might happen as early as tomorrow. I badly want to do a show where I just get to tell you all my favorites on this first Yahoo board. Frankly, before they put out a new board. That show becomes dumb at that point. Anybody that's done a draft, great. But if you hadn't, then we got to do it all over again. Such is our, frankly, pretty fun cross to bear. But you do have to recycle ideas at this time of year when the board keeps changing. So, Friday's show, we left off at James Harden, who happens to be one of my favorite plays in this top 25. And we pick up today with number 26, and that's Paul George, who, interestingly, on the Yahoo projections board, not their pre-rank, their projections, Paul George is way down at number 66. I know, but we're not talking projections right now. We're talking pre-rank, and 26, frankly, at least in my mind, is too high. He was good last year. It was great, actually. Number 12 on the Clippers, but he was very much the 1B on that team, or combined 1A. He and Kawhi Leonard each took about 17 shots a ball game, and then James Harden was kind of floating in behind them. With Philly, there's Joel Embiid, who's going to be taking 20 plus, and then all the free throws, and the ball's just always in his hand. You've also got Tyrese Maxey, who, I mentioned it on Friday's show. I do think he takes a little bit of a bent on bended knee. I think he takes a little bit of a back seat to Embiid at the very least, but I also believe that Maxey and Paul George kind of split what's left. So I'm looking for PG to be a bigger value than this season. Having to take him end of the second, early third is frankly too high in my mind. Not because I don't think he can't get there, because 15, 16 shots is still pretty attainable for PG. It's more about wanting to have some room for him to beat where you're drafting him. And it's hard to see that as a large jump. He's relatively safe in that the bottom outside of an injury is probably not going to totally fall out with PG. Like worst case scenario is 35, something like that. So at least you get that. And there is a certain value in safety at this point. But there isn't, in my eyes, a whole lot of chance that he goes blowing past this mark. Number 27 on the board is Desmond Bane, and I don't really know what he's doing there. Bane had a chance to run the Grizzlies last year, and he finished at number 34 on a per-game basis, and he's likely to do less this year. And I get it. There are these fleeting, difficult to grasp, like a little butterfly examples of players that do less that helps their fantasy value, but that's not usually the case. And by all accounts, Desmond Bane is going to be taking fewer than 18 and a half shots a game this coming season. So points will come down, threes will come down, free throws will come down. Yes, the negative impact of the field goal percent will come down, and the turnovers probably will as well, but the assists will also probably be a little bit lower. Even if it's good for the Grizzlies that everybody's back, it's not going to be great for Bane. He also hasn't exactly shown a propensity to stay super healthy all the time, although I don't think we can really look at last year. That was a throwaway season. Once Ja got hurt after his brief return, they just pulled the plug on the season. But this is another one. And don't get me wrong, there are going to be some interesting names coming up here, but these early third right now, other than Harden, are not really my cups of tea this season. De'Aaron Fox, that's the next name on the board. He's number 28, finished at number 25 last year, had an excellent season, by the way, and in my eyes, kind of maxed it out. Low free throw percent for a guard, typically a decent field goal percent. He's been firing away from three-point land, so the field goal percent took a little bit of a hit as a result. And they added DeMar DeRozan, who's likely to take a little bit away from Fox. Not a ton, because this is still Fox's team, and DeMar is aged, but it'll take a little bit away because you just don't want Fox doing this much all season long. We've seen the way that it takes its toll on him. Plus, and this is the thing maybe I'm a little more concerned about, maintaining 2 steals per game feels like a tall order for Fox. Would I take him at 28 and be... he falls into the same exact freaking category as the other guys we just talked about. Well, Bane, I guess you could see the bottom fall out a little bit. But, Paul George, is he going to beat this mark? Probably not. Could he? Maybe by a little. Is he going to be super far behind it? Also probably not. And I feel similarly about De'Aaron Fox. And if you scroll the board back up to our show from Friday, you can see a few other names that I kind of felt similarly about. LeBron feels like one that, could he go a little higher? Yeah, maybe. Will he be too far behind? Probably not. Scotty Barnes I actually like more than that other stuff. Booker is a similar one. Probably not going to go much ahead of 18, but is he going to fall far? Not too. Dame, I think, has a chance to be a little bit better, but is he going to fall? No. You got all these guys that are the safer picks with not as much upside built in. But I do want to stress again, that's okay. That's an okay way to draft your second round picks. I think once you get to the third, though, and that's maybe why I'm a little bit more sour on these guys. When I get to the third round, I usually feel like there's someone in there that I could draft that could roll top 18. I don't know that these guys are those dudes. LaMelo Ball at number 29. Obviously, he is one of those dudes, but he's also a dude who can't make it healthy through a season. So we end up with a very difficult discussion on our hands. What round could we possibly spend to pick on LaMelo Ball? I personally think this is an okay spot for it. Now, your team has to be constructed in a way that drafting LaMelo Ball, if he turns out to be badly hurt again, your team isn't immediately dead. This is mid-third round, if this is indeed where he ends up going, meaning you got a mid-second rounder. Who might that be this year? Like a Booker or a Dame or something like that? Or a Scotty Barnes if you go a little later. You got to make sure you're looking at someone who you think is going to make it through a year. You can't be sitting on I love Kevin Durant. I think he's a great value at 15, so maybe he's not the best example here. You can't be sitting on someone you think is going to be hurt a bunch in one of your early picks and then go right back to the well with LaMelo Ball. He has to basically be your first injury fear guy. Otherwise, you set yourself up where if a couple of your injury fear guys don't pan out early, your team's just done month into the season. So, again, looking at the top 30, Who are the guys that you probably would not want to pair with LaMelo Ball? Anthony Davis would be one of them off that early board. Embiid off the early board. Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell. Hell, maybe even LeBron. He's going to be 40 this year, guys. Paul George stayed healthy this season. Will he again? I don't know. Hard to say. And then you get to Jaren Jackson at number 30. I don't want to try to keep this show moving along a little bit, so let's keep hustling. But JJJ is an interesting one, and he might be that butterfly you have to catch where doing less is actually doing more. This last season, he was number 53 per game in 9CAT, a steep drop-off from number 12 the year before that, despite the fact that all of his offensive numbers, at least from a counting perspective, went up. But what basically got shaved in half, the equivalent of like 90 to 100 blocks, was the block rate. That's a huge deal. We've talked about it with Wembanyama. When your value is so tied up in that one category, if something happens to it, and by the way, I don't think anything's happening to Wemby's blocks because he's 7 foot a million and has arms that are 8 foot a million, whereas JJJ, not the biggest dude on earth, but an incredible block instinct, had to expend all of his energy at the offensive end of the floor and just sort of didn't have the time, patience, wherewithal, whatever you want to say, to go block shots on defense, mostly because he just couldn't risk picking up fouls. Grizzlies simply had no prayer if JJJ wasn't available. They didn't have much of a prayer even when he was, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. But therein lies the rub. If you could take JJJ at 30 and someone was like, yeah, his blocks are going to bounce back a little bit this year, well, then, of course, you'd jump all over it. But there's no way to guarantee that that's going to happen. I think I'm probably going to let somebody else take the plunge on the JJJ thing, even if there's a bounce back, and it's possible. We talked about hunting for guys in the third round that could have first-round appeal. Well, he's one of them. But we've also seen the other direction. And what if the block rate doesn't come back, but Ja is back in there and Marcus Smart is back in there and Bane is healthy for most of the year? And now you're talking about a lower usage JJJ without the defensive stats? That's a deep, cataclysmic fall. I'm looking down. Those of you that are watching the video, you see me looking at my phone. It's because there's a phone call coming in from my kid's school. Just letting everybody know that there was an earthquake. Yes, there was an earthquake in Los Angeles today. This is true. And we're all fine. Let's keep going. This is where we have to rotate the page over to the next one on Yahoo. How do I get to the next page? There it is. All right, let's get back up to the top. Number 31. This feels like a good time to remind you guys that we need to take a quick break for a commercial. Number 31, back from the break. Jalen Johnson. Yeah, I warned y'all. I think I used y'all appropriately. Talking about a player on the Atlanta Hawks. Jalen Johnson finished at number 46 last year. We've had a lot of folks come on the pod talking about how excited they are about Jalen Johnson. And, you didn't need to be the oracle from the Matrix to realize that when everybody is coming on a podcast, all guests, all humans, myself included, and we're all excited about the same dude, that dude's not going to go late in fantasy drafts. This is before any rankings were out. I mean, you guys probably were better at keeping track of it than I am. How many times did a guest or myself, did we talk about how Jalen Johnson is going to be basically the fantasy god's gift to fantasy sports? Regularly. But then I think I followed that up almost every time by saying, look, you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay through the freaking nose for this dude. Because, first of all, what we saw this last year, just an insane jump from Jalen Johnson, up to 16 points, almost 9 boards, over a three-pointer, 1.2 steals, 0.8 blocks, 3.5 assists, 51% from the field. Didn't shoot a great free throw number, but, maybe that's a thing that he works on. Just across the board, providing in so many categories. on a team that then traded away their number 2 usage guy in DeJounte Murray when you are the number 3 guy in Jalen Johnson. He was in a catbird seat. And so all of us coming into the season were like, look, it doesn't take that much to get Jalen Johnson from number 46 up to around number 30. Getting him above that is going to take some lifting. He's going to need more shots, like quite a bit more. He's going to need to fix that free throw stroke a little bit. Crazy thing is, I don't hate Jalen Johnson in the 3rd round. You know, again, if we're looking at guys that have the potential to take a leap forward, he's certainly a guy that could do that. But damn, I mean, you price yourself out of a lot of the value. Like if you could get him at 40, that would be fantastic. But it's just not going to happen. We're seeing it already. You might even see him go sooner. Because what if he takes a jump? What if he jumps from 16 to 19 or 20 points? What if the assists go up over 4? What if he does fix part of the free throw stroke? And all of this stuff travels up the board together. Now you're talking about a late 2nd rounder. But that doesn't give a whole lot of room around a guy being drafted at 31, especially, and this is where things get a little bit more Dan Besbris flavored, when Lauri Markkanen is sitting right behind him at number 32. And I know that the Jazz are this very weird, we have no idea what they're doing, if they're trying to win or not kind of team. But Markkanen has been a safe top 20 per game guy or better. He was number 14 this last year in Utah. And there's really no reason to think that his job changes all that much. They're planning on signing him to an extraordinarily long-term extension, both good and bad. It means that they could shut him down again this year if the Jazz decide they want to go into tank mode. Or is this we're going to try for more than the first 4 months iteration of the Jazz? Were the Hawks even going to try all year? Because we didn't even bring up that part of it. But now you're debating between, and I get it. I understand the mental battle that has to go on here because for Jalen Johnson, he's a dude on the rise. For Lauri Markkanen, he's a dude on the plateau. But you're debating between a guy at 31 who was on and off the basketball injured list all of last season. Jalen Johnson, by the way, as much as we want to talk about like Markkanen shutdown, Jalen Johnson played one more game than Lauri did this year, 56 to 55. One of them was just hurt all the time. The other one, he was hurt like one time, and then it was pretty much the rest of the way. But Jalen Johnson has to do all these things to jump 30 spots where Markkanen already was. Bam Adebayo is number 33 on the pre-ranked board. Bam Adebayo was number 49 on a per-game basis last year. A lot of good stuff. 19 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, a steal and a block, 52% from the field. Not bad at the foul line, but maybe took more than you'd want on the not great field goal percent. He's extraordinarily safe as a big man to finish probably in the 40s. Why is he going at 33? Your guess is as good as mine. Health? That's your best guess. He played 71 games last year, so a little bit better by totals, but not by much. I'd love to have Bam Adebayo on my fantasy team, but I don't really want to have to draft him in the mid-3rd round. It's a similar thing to some of these other guys we've talked about, although the guy right behind him here is another shimmering example of a dude who's already there. Freddie VanVleet. Freddie was number 18 this last year. Played 73 out of 82 ball games. I did a lot of Fred VanVleet apologizing leading up to drafts last year, where I was like, listen, there was sort of a consensus, not consensus, that's not fair, because not everybody said it, but general public, I should say. That's what I was able to sort of see out there in the social media landscape. I always worry when I say something, people are going to be like, oh, Dan's talking about somebody. No. I'm just trying to see what people are saying, how they reply to things I put out into social media. Freddie VanVleet was a guy the Rockets gave a crap ton of money to go kind of right the ship. And they started that process last year. And yeah, a lot of the guys on this team should get better year over year. But I don't know that any of those improvements really takes away from what VanVleet is being asked to do on a night-to-night basis. He didn't shoot the ball that much. Took 14 shots a game last year. Mostly, he was a very good defensive point guard for defensive stats who had a bunch of three-pointers and had 8 assists a ball game. Bad field goal percent, good free throw percent. That feels relatively repeatable, even if there's some slight erosion there, which, remember, the beginning of the season, VanVleet was not inside the top 20. He was just sort of steamrolled after a bad first couple of weeks. 34 was like a little bit back of where he was going last year. And then that last week, right before the season started, we saw Freddie fall into the 40s. And then I ended up with him everywhere. He was not on my target board when he was going in the late 20s, early 30s. I thought, you're cutting it close a little there. And then he fell into the 40s. I thought, okay, well, this is nuts. Like, this is Fred VanVleet we're talking about. 34, I would take him at 34. I think there's some wiggle room there. And if people are sour on an old man again, then he drops past it and I'll do it again. Jamal Murray is number 35, which I'm only disappointed here because I thought he'd go later because he played 59 games last season. He was number 33 per game. So, like, the rank makes sense. It's not wrong. It's actually a perfect rank for Jamal Murray. But I was hoping that there'd be some sour tastes that pushed him down into the 40s in what, in my eyes, is a little bit of a Denver revenge year. Revenge. No, that doesn't work. So this is fine. Perfectly reasonable spot to take Jamal Murray. I have nothing to add to it. Karl-Anthony Towns at number 36. The days of Cat as a second rounder or better are long gone. He was number 43 this past season. If we want Cat to be a third rounder or better, we need Rudy Gobert to miss a chunk of time, which did not happen this past season. Gobert was quite healthy, played in 76 out of 82 games. In fact, I think the ones where he was out, Cat was also out, at least some of them. So you just didn't get the rebounding or the shot blocking or the field goal percent that you wanted to out of Cat, and you likely won't again as he continues to be more the 2 and 3 option behind Anthony Edwards. And playing power forward for a big man is not good for the big man. It doesn't matter who the big man is. That's just the way it works. If they flip-flopped him and Gobert had to play power forward, it'd be the same problem. But they can't do that because Cat is a very good shooter and Rudy can't chase somebody out. Not that either of these guys could really chase someone at the perimeter, but Rudy's shot blocking, rim protection is the reason it's always going to be the other way around. That's not the discussion we're supposed to be having right now. Cat at 36, I mean, it's fine. He hasn't been healthy for a full season in a while. I'm probably not going to end up with almost any Karl-Anthony Townses on my team, but I also understand if you want to take him at 36 because he's a big man who has good percentages and no longer gets defensive stats, but does hit the three-pointer. So whatever. Not excited about it. Paolo at number 37. This is very much the result of the sort of aggregate of points leagues in this pre-rank. Paolo's not going to get anywhere near number 37 in 9 Cat. So for me, that's what I'm playing. I'm not going to go down that path. Now, if you're in an 8 category league and you're also punting probably free throw percent, but really either of the 2 percentages, that gives you kind of an inside track at Paolo, but he's a mess in all 3 of the points league categories: field goal percent, free throw percent, and turnovers. So if you're playing 9 Cat, or frankly, even 8 Cat without a punt, no. If you're playing points leagues, have at it. He's fun in that format, but I ain't. Cade Cunningham at number 38. Cade is an interesting story because he had a dismal start to the campaign and then was significantly better the second half, or really the last couple of months of last year. And over the final 20 games, Cunningham averaged 24, 5, and 8 with 2.5 3-pointers on 46-90 splits, which actually put him inside the top 50. pretty damn close to where this pre-rank is. And I know everybody really wants to roll up assists, and Cade is going to get you some of those. And his team is a little bit better around him, so maybe that helps in some small way. But this does still feel a little bit early for 9-cat. 8-cat makes more sense. You wipe out the turnovers, which are always going to be kind of on the high side. This feels somewhat attainable for him. Yeah, I think we can probably live it at that. If you're playing 8-cat, Cunningham, 4th round, that's fine. 9-cat probably wouldn't do it, depending on your build and punt. But it's not so much because I don't like Cade as much as in 9-cat, there are just other better options around him that'll probably be there for you. Earlier today, we had a robust discussion with Rhett Bauer on Jimmy Butler, who's pre-ranked 39 and is once again coming off another season where his body just couldn't take it for an entire year. He played only 60 out of 82 games. There's a lot to like about Butler. 21, 5-5 with 1.3 steals last year, a little bit on the lower side. Actually improved his three-point shot a little bit. 50 and 86 were the splits. You love the percentages. Turnovers were very low for someone who was doing a lot of the ball handling. I don't know, man. Like, it's going to be hard for me on a roto league with a games cap to turn down Jimmy Butler in the middle of the 4th round when we know that if he has a good steals year, he can be a mid-second rounder on a per-game basis. But you also have to go into this one assuming that Butler's playing 65 or fewer basketball games, which I am. I am assuming this. Head-to-head, I don't know. I think I'd probably leave him alone in head-to-head. He's going to be annoying. Jared Allen is number 40. This surprised me. He was number 44 last year. Evan Mobley missed a ton of time. I love Jared Allen, and we just did a show on the Cavaliers last week where I was like, yeah, he'll probably go in the 50 range, and we can scoop him up as an easy cruising center, but he's pre-ranked 10 slots higher than expected. I know what you're thinking. Dan, what's 10 slots in the grand scheme of things if you can just get a nice, calm, relaxing center locked up? It's quite a lot, actually, because you wipe out the upside almost entirely. If you draft Jared Allen at 50, you're like, yeah, I mean, this guy's probably going to be a small hit and he'll just quietly punch along. He had really nice totals numbers this last year because he was super healthy. At 40, the way he beats it is likely by totals. Meanwhile, the guys behind him, now you have some really interesting stuff. And it's that same. You got Alperen Sengun at 41, which surprised me, but didn't blow me away. Sengun averaged 21, 9, and 5 with 1.9 combined defensive stats and 54% from the field. But he doesn't hit the three-pointer. His free throw percent was a disaster last year. And he basically showed himself to be a punt free throw guy this past season. And, you know, this is where you kind of get into the weeds on how we talk about fantasy basketball. If you're just going straight 9-cat, someone on Twitter was like, Sengun in the 40s is ridiculous. Like, well, Sengun in the that was in like he needs to be higher. It's like, well, you know, not really. If you're going strictly by the numbers and you're not trying to lose free throws, Sengun in the 40s is a round and a half jump up from where he was last year. He also missed the last 5 weeks of the season with an injury. But if you're not attacking free throws, Sengun's a monster. So to that end, I get it. For me, rolling in my heavily roto games capped formats, I'm probably not drafting Sengun at 41 because I'm probably going to try to win percentages. I think that's a ticket to victory in roto. You make the call. Jalen Williams, I like a lot at 42. He was better than this for the second half of last season. He was better than this during the second half of his rookie campaign. Josh Giddey is gone. I mean, Jalen Williams, if you're going to spend on a Jalen, forget Jalen Johnson. I'll go Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams is 4 slots better than Jalen Johnson last year. Each guy set to probably take a step forward, mind you. Jalen Johnson's step perhaps a little bit bigger than Jalen Williams. But Jalen Williams, you can get mid 4th round. Evan Mobley at number 43 is a perfectly reasonable place to draft Evan Mobley. And this actually comes back to the Jarrett Allen discussion. Those two guys were within 3 slots of each other last year. Last season, Mobley was going about a round and a half ahead of Jarrett Allen. Now he's going behind him by a little bit. So last year, I wanted all the Jarrett Allens, and I was like, yeah, I think this is too early on Evan Mobley, and it was. This year, I'm flipping it. I want Mobley at 43. I'll take Mobley mid to late 4th round over Jarrett Allen early 4th round. That's way more fun, and then just hope that Evan stays healthy. Franz Wagner at number 44. I like Franz. I think he's a good basketball player. I don't know what he's going to add to his game this season. I think he did that. So I don't want Franz at 44. I'll make that discussion quick. Kawhi at 45. If you're in a games cap format, this is the no-brainer of the century. The century. Honest to goodness, even if you're in a head-to-head league without a games cap, this might be the no-brainer of the century. Kawhi Leonard played in 68 games last year, which that's the high water mark. He's probably not getting near 68 this coming season, but you could see him get to 60. 60 games out of Kawhi Leonard would still be an early 2nd round pick. And this is late 4th. That's by totals, by the way, 2nd round. By totals, if he plays 60 ball games. You think he can make it through 60 out of 82? I think that's a reasonable number. 58, still a 2nd rounder. I mean, it's really not all that far off what we talked about with like a Donovan Mitchell. Played in 55 games last year. He was number 31. Kawhi's going to be better than Donovan Mitchell on a per-game basis this year. So 55 games, it's going to be 31 or better, pretty much. Fuzzy mathing it a little bit, but 45 is nuts. I'll take Kawhi Leonard. Yes, thank you. Please and thank you. Miles Turner is the next name on the board. He had his role diminished this last season. Miles did. He was number 35 by totals, mostly because he was super healthy. Per game basis, he fell into the 40s this year. Actually, early 50s, excuse me. 17-7 with 2 blocks. Only played 27 minutes per game. And that was the really surprising part. And it wasn't because he was banged up or anything. The Pacers just sort of went light on the Miles Turner minutes. I don't know that they come back. I'm going to pass on Miles here. And I'm going to pass on Kristaps Porzingis right behind him. There is absolutely no way on planet Earth you could get me to buy in on Porzingis when he's expected to miss the first 2.5 months of the season. No chance on Earth unless he falls outside the top 100 in a keeper league. Otherwise, no. He will destroy your team as you wait on him to come back and then probably won't come back all that quickly anyway. Messy, messy, messy area right here. Jaylen Brown at 48 is also way too early on Brown in a 9-category format because dude has these giant holes in his fantasy game that dropped him to 79 last year. Yeah, the 23 points, the 2 threes, those are nice. 1.2 steals, that's solid. But the brutal field goal percent, that really held him back. Or, free throw percent. Jaylen Brown's free throw dropped off a cliff. And, another dude coming off a long finals run. I'm mostly fading Celtics this year, especially guys getting drafted earlier than their per-game final ranks the year before. I took Jaylen Brown in one league last year, and I ended up being annoyed about it, so I'll probably pass there. Vooch at 49 is another guy I'm passing on. I know you guys were, and I talked about this with Rhett a little bit earlier on today in the first show on Monday. This is a horrible year for Vooch. He's on the trade block. He's been trending down. If he's on a team that's not going to be trying, you can bet your butt he's not going to be trying all that much. And he finished at number 51 last year. This is not a guy who's about to go do more this season. Even with DeMar gone, the shots are not about to go up for Vooch. It's going to go to the younger guys. Vooch is this range now, but with a big question mark hanging over him. So hard pass on Vooch. I do not like. Normally, the end of the 4th round is an area where I find guys that are clustered that I like to draft. Not this time around. And then Jalen Duren at 50 is another guy that in my mind is just going too soon. Maybe somebody see. Look, I love Jalen Duren. You guys remember my hot take from before last season where I said I thought Duren has a shot to lead the league in rebounding, and he wasn't all that far off. But here's the problem. He's a traditional style big man who doesn't get many defensive stats. He's going to get you a ton of rebounds. The field goal percent is going to be great. It's actually a decent foul shooter for a kind of traditional big, but 1.3 combined defensive stats. That's just not enough. He has no pathway inside the top 50 unless he gets the defensive stuff figured out. And it does seem like, at least, a few years into his career now, you sort of are what you are. He played 29 minutes a game last year. I mean, maybe that goes up to 31, so that's how he could see a little gain in rebounds, steals, blocks, whatever. But power boosting up 2 to 3 rounds is going to require some shot blocking. And that's just not really his jam. So what the hell do you do if you have a pick late 4th round, which is basically like you had one of the first picks in your draft, right? Because it's looping back around to you. End of 2nd, end of 4th, end of 6th, all that kind of stuff. What do you do? If Kawhi Leonard is gone, who do you draft? If Evan Mobley is gone, who do you draft? You're going to have to go farther down the board, friends. And you're going to have to look at some of the guys that we're going to talk about on our next exploration show. I don't really want you drafting Miles Bridges, but Gobert, not a terrible option there. Pretty safe. Derek White, pretty good. Emmanuel Quickley, relatively safe, I reckon. Claxton, I mean, this is actually kind of a rough stretch. DeRozan's a little risky there. Zion's risky. D'Angelo's risky. Mark Williams is actually a pretty good one if his back holds up. And then Ingram is risky. Crap, the whole 5th round is a mess. I'm not sure I like about 2 names in the 5th round that I kind of like. Yucky. Yucky, I say. That's yucky poo. Ugh. That's disappointing. I forgot to take a break in the middle of the show to remind you guys to like, rate, and subscribe, but I'll do it at the end here if anybody actually made it this far. Please take a moment to click that like button on YouTube, rate and subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube as well to get all of our good stuff, especially because we're going 1 million shows over the next 2.5 months. That's the goal. 1 million. I think we can get there, right? We can do it if we really put our minds to it. 1 million. Going once, going twice. We'll have more of these exploration shows. We've got to talk about the projections for Yahoo. I got to do my favorites on this initial board. We're going to do our possible busts on this initial board. And we got to chat with some awesome, awesome guests over the rest of this week. Matt Smith is coming up. Adam Stock is coming up. Dan Titus is coming up. Josh Lloyd is coming up. That's over the rest of this week as well. So huge week on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm really happy that you guys are along for the ride. I am at Dan Vespris on Twitter, at Old Man Squad. Give that a follow. It will follow you back. Enjoy the rest of your day. I haven't decided when this show's getting released, so we'll likely talk to you after this at some point on Tuesday. Stay tuned. I think if I can get my act together, that'll be the Dan's favorites. That one's usually a real crowd pleaser. Okay. Toodaloo for now. We'll see you guys soon.